Brown's threatening on a quick burst by fullback Jimmy Brown. This Jimmy Brown just sticks his head down and powers straight forward. He's a hard man to stop.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown. And another touchdown for Jim Brown.
I guess he'll go down as one of the great all-time running backs in professional football. No question about it.
Jim was a great football player, but he's a better man.
We're going to talk about the great Jim Brown.
Not only are we going to sit around and talk about Jim Brown like he's not here, we are going to then have Jim Brown at that round table with us.
People still compare him to players that play today. He's not only been someone that I've looked up to as a former athlete, but even more so as a person.
You feel like some way, somehow, he's impacted or affected your ability to play sport.
I always feel good to see old football players. It makes me think about, okay, we'll have a chance too.
Welcome to a very special NFL Network presentation, one that I am extremely excited about, guys. With me, I have four-time Super Bowl champ and Hall of Famer, Franco Harris. I have the man, first guy with 10,000 rushing, 5,000 receiving, Hall of Famer, Marcus Allen, and oh, yeah, his prized possession, the NFL single-season rushing leader, Hall of Famer, Eric Dickerson. Guys, we are here to celebrate the career and the life of Jim Brown. And I just want to start with you guys because we've all obviously met Jim Brown and we've had interactions with him. That very first interaction with Jim Brown, Franco.
My first memories of Jim Brown was in high school when I put number 32 on my back because of Jim Brown. I wanted to be like Jim Brown. His reputation in our neighborhood was so big that everybody wanted to be Jim Brown.
Well, I met Jim in college. Me, Ronnie, Lott, Dennis Smith. We went to his house and we played basketball with him. And I remember we began to play well. And you can see Jim increase the intensity. We like to say we let Jim win.
Look, I heard the games are pretty serious up there.
No, they were, but it was amazing, you know, meeting him for the first time because he is this physical specimen. I mean, chiseled, you know. And then you right away you see the intellect and you see the human being behind the person and stuff like that. And so it was great for us. I mean, that was the first time I met him. At SC, we went to his house, played basketball, and it was great. It was awesome.
My first meeting of Jim Brown was at a restaurant on Sunset, and I was, I think, my first year in the league, and everybody was out there talking, Jim Brown, Jim Brown, Jim Brown. And he walked up, he said, you know, how you doing, Eric? I said, how you doing, Mr. Brown? You know, pleasure meeting, you know, because I was a rookie, and I was a young guy. And he was like an icon, like, man, that's Jim Brown. You know, golly, he shook my hand. And then I had a chance to go to his house over in the Hollywood Hills. And I'm like, so this is how stars live, huh? You know, you can have the whole skyline and everything. And
For me, it was, I just gotten drafted. I was out here in L.A. We were out somewhere, and I was introduced to Jim Brown, and I'm floored. I'm like, because to me, Jim Brown was he was like a myth. You know, you heard about this man, you saw him on TV acting, you watched him play, and every highlight they showed, it was like guys hit Jim and just fell down. So I'm in awe, and I'm watching him, and his stature, he's not like, man, this is a big man. Yeah. That mystique and that folklore of a mindset, it resided in all of us. How about memories of what you saw when you saw Jim carry the football?
My dad always told me about him. You know, I grew up looking at television, and I saw highlights of him and how impressive he was. But then I kept hearing that, you know, not only were running backs, you know, measured to him, the entire league was. It's like, you know, forget about running backs. It's like every player is measured, you know, to Jim Brown, and because he was the touchstone, he was the measuring stick. He was the guy that, you know, was the best player ever lived. So.
Like, I'm sitting there looking at all the highlights. And these are the highlights that I saw when I was young. And you know what? It's almost like it's just Jim on the screen. Then all of a sudden, here comes a guy come out of nowhere, and it's like, get away, get away. I mean, and that's what when you see Jim Brown play and you think about Jim Brown as a player, that's what I picture.
Him being my idol at that time really helped inspire me because of what he stood for. And like, to me, that alone helped in such a big way.
When he played at a time that was, very difficult for black players.
Oh, yes.
And you think about all the things that he had to deal with and still be as great as he was. I think the question was asked about, why is he such an icon? And I think it is because he was a man first. And his dignity was important. He wanted to be treated like a man. And I think for all of us, as we look at him, I think that is why we respected him so much.
We all know. You sit in that backfield, they know you're getting the ball. They know. And to lead the league in rushing 8 out of the 9 years that you are in it, I mean, that's
phenomenal.
That's
the part.
To never miss a game.
That's the part.
To never miss a game.
Guys, he was a great athlete. He was a track star. He played basketball.
Lacrosse.
He played lacrosse. He's one of the few guys that are multiple, Hall of Fame scholars.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So we're talking about a guy that, came along once a generation, really. I mean, he was an amazing athlete. Everybody talks about Jim Thorpe. I mean, he has to be put in that conversation. Everything he did it phenomenally.
But when we start to talk about once-in-a-lifetime generation type of player, it brings me to mind to look at today's athletes. We look at today's running backs in the NFL. Is there anyone that you could say, okay, this guy looks like Jim?
If you could take Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson and combine them, I think that's about as close as you're going to get, because...
So we have to combine.
You have to combine. You can't take one.
Eric said it right there.
We have to combine some players.
You have to combine all the players.
You have to combine
to really get, I think, what Jim had.
I think that's a fair statement.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a reason they call him the greatest that ever played.
Still to come, the 4th leading rusher of all time, Curtis Martin. Plus, how would Jim Brown fare in today's NFL? Our Hall of Fame running back panel puts number 32 in modern context.
When I think of Jim Brown, I remember when I was in college, you're watching those Cleveland Browns, watching Jimmy Brown, man. He was absolutely sensational.
Vicious, ferocious, just dominant, elusive, just incredible. The greatest of all time.
I used to marvel at his effort out on the field, how he could maintain his balance, dusting people off. He was a great football player.
A lot of people feel like he's the greatest running back, maybe the greatest football player that ever played in the NFL. I'm not going to argue with any of those assessments.
One Hall of Famer out, another Hall of Famer joins us. Curtis Martin is here. Guys, let's just think about the state of the NFL right now and where the league is. When you think about Jim Brown and his running style and how he played, how would he fit into the league today?
Well, I think that Jim could play, and this is my how I measure great players. Are they a product of a system? Are they a product of a time? Jim he can play in any generation. He could play yesterday, he can play in the future, he can play today.
Well, I'll say this, Jim is not a guy, he's not a running back that's 5'10", he's not 6 foot, he's 6'3" at that time, 235, 245, and he can run. So, I mean, the defenses aren't unafraid of you. It's what you do to them. And the style of running he ran the football was the pounding, hitting. As the game goes on, those linebackers, those defensive backs, like, hey, man, stop him up front. Make some tackles. They're like, y'all stop him in the back.
Yeah.
So I really believe that he would be the same guy.
One of the things that I've learned about Jim in playing chess with him is his ability to adapt. And so just as he was the greatest player then, he would find a way to be the greatest player today.
Talk about those chess matches. I mean, we were just talking back there. Yeah, Jim and I, Franco asked you about playing. Yeah, Jim and I, we'll play chess on a normal day, 7 hours, 7-hour day playing chess.
Yeah. We started playing because we met at a friend's wedding, and we played at the wedding. And after that, when I come out to LA, it was so competitive. And, you know, for me, it was really an honor to be playing Jim Brown. I was even driven more by the willingness to beat Jim Brown. I really wanted to beat him. So after the first time I beat him, we started talking stuff back and forth, and before you know it, we sat out by his pool from, it was daytime when we started, it was nighttime when we finished playing. Of course, he beat me, but he beat me more than I beat him.
If you would have beat, yeah, exactly, because you beat Jim, you got to keep playing.
Yeah,
you don't get away with the victory. I just wonder with how the game is played today, with the need and the thirst to throw the football, where his place would be. I keep thinking about it. It doesn't matter who you are in the game. The minute you get down a touchdown or more, they're throwing the football. He might still be effective. He might not average 5.6 or 5 yards a carry. Maybe was it maybe 4.6? But that's still a lot.
That's still a lot. Yeah. You know, I think the type of player that Jim was and the type of person he is, he's not a selfish person. It's not about Jim Brown. It's about the team. And I think that would carry on even in today's game, because Jim is that kind of person. It's not about me. Jim would say it's not about me. It's about the whole gamut here. As a player, that's what players do. You know, and you see the selfish players like, well, why I ain't getting the ball? Or why I'm not throwing the ball? And that's not Jim Brown. So he would be, I think, just as great now as he was back then.
Guys, again, if you're a coach and you have the best player on the field, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to get him the ball, whether it's, you know, via the run or the pass. You're going to create ways to get him the ball. And you know, yes, guys throw the ball a lot, but, you know, the demise of the running back, we know, is greatly exaggerated, guys. Exactly. I mean, you don't go to Super Bowls without a running game. Now, they may disguise it as
platoon system.
Platooning system, yeah, but it's still, you know, the running back. So, but if you got, you know, now we're talking about still the greatest player that ever played, right? Now we're just bringing him into this generation, and so we're saying he's still the greatest player that ever played. You don't, you know, you do not give him the ball. You give him the ball. You find ways to do it.
But every great running back wants a good quarterback. And I'm going to tell you something about Jim. Who was this quarterback?
I just saw number 13. Who is number 13?
We really don't know. You know, it's like Jim played, and the quarterback, normally when you have a good running back, you know who the quarterback or the quarterbacks are. With Jim, it's never mentioned.
And I don't think you ever saw eye to eye with his quarterbacks as well, too, so.
Why? You think they didn't hand the ball off the right way?
Perhaps they didn't call the right audibles.
Audible? You think there was audible? If the play was going to Jim, that was it. There was no audible.
One of the most fascinating things about Jim to me is that, especially our era, we haven't really seen Jim play, you know, firsthand. But he is still considered the best player to ever touch the field in our eyes. And we've never actually witnessed him playing the way other people have. And I just think for you to be that great, that people don't even have to see you play and still consider you the best to ever do it, I think that speaks to...
Again, when I was growing up, my dad would talk about him, and all pleasures were measured by him. So it was, you know, he was a football god.
Coming up, Jim Brown carried Cleveland to its last major sports championship. Now, our Hall of Famers examine what he means to the franchise and to the city.
We welcome back in Hall of Famer Franco Harris. We also have Hall of Famer Marcus Allen and Hall of Famer Curtis Martin. Guys, Jim Brown, and it is cut and dry. Why is Jim so respected?
You look at his career, we know about his career, but really what he had to deal with, especially at a very unpopular time for a black athlete to go against the grain. And I always felt what separated Jim from a lot of athletes was he always did the right thing, even though a lot of people didn't like it, instead of the popular thing. He always stood up for people that were disenfranchised or underprivileged. He was always looking out for people that were less fortunate than him. And he did this while he played the game.
I think Jim always did the unpopular right thing. And I think that shows a certain amount of courage, a certain amount of fortitude and stick-to-itiveness, a certain amount of perseverance that people just learn to respect over a period of time.
For me, with Jim, and as to why I believe he's respected is, and I pay attention to this with just about everybody. Jim, he gives the respect that he wants you to give him. You are going to receive it from him. And I think regardless if it's football or life, business, whatever it is, if you respect someone, it's going to be hard for them to disrespect you. And Jim is a guy that he's going to know who you are. He's going to know where you played. He's going to know your accolades. He's going to know your tough time if you've been through it in life. It surprised me about him that even at this age, he still keeps up with the game of football, with today's generation and the guys that are playing. And I just think that's a respect factor because I think he's taken it upon himself to know that he is an icon for people whom have never seen him play, may never see him play. I know for me, my kids know about Jim Brown. They know who Jim is. And it's not just because of his play, but kind of moving on to Jim in Cleveland. You know, we all have a relationship with various cities that we played. It just seems that Jim Brown and Cleveland, I mean, was the perfect match. Why was that?
One, it's an incredible sports town. They love their sports. And then you have, I think, in their minds, the epitome of blue collar, because I think that's what they really sort of personify there in Cleveland, blue collar town. You have an incredible athlete that is really the best at what he does, and it represented the entire city. He was the Browns, and the Browns were him, and the city were the Browns. I mean, so it was like a perfect marriage.
Marshall, some things we don't have control over, right?
That's true.
There's no way I want to go to Pittsburgh, you know? I mean, I didn't want to go there, but I went there, and it couldn't have been a better place, and sometimes the match just works. And I think for Jim, as you were saying, that match worked.
I just think about the city of Cleveland and what they've endured. The last championship that the city of Cleveland got to embrace is the 1964 championship with Jim Brown. Oh, you're responsible for some of that.
Marshall, but you're absolutely right, because he is their champion. He is they vicariously lived through him. They have been perennial losers in many cases and stuff, and been close to the opportunity, you know,
in that city, not just the Browns, but the Indians and the Cavs. They are chasing the 1964 championship that Jim Brown brought to that city. That's what everybody, I mean, their mom, their grandmothers, that's what they remember.
Yes.
They remember that one championship, and I believe it means so much to that city. If you've ever played in Cleveland, they're so passionate.
Oh, they are some of the best sports fans around.
Yes, they are passionate.
Going in, playing against them, they are, you know, they're a source to put over their teams and stuff. And that's why I said, I mean, yes, they've lost, you know, year after year after year. And you're right. I think they're chasing that championship. And the one person that identifies most of that is it's the greatest player of all time. And where is he from? Cleveland Brown, you know.
You know, every once in a while, I think people come along who can literally change an entire atmosphere. And, you know, you have it with Michael Jordan. I think that the city of Chicago benefited greatly from Michael Jordan just playing in Chicago. In the same way, I think Cleveland really benefited from Jim playing in Cleveland. And I think that sometimes there can be someone who is so great at what they do and have such a large impact wherever they are that they can actually give the city an identity.
Yeah. He's absolutely right. Who's the greatest player of all time? Jim Brown.
There you go.
Where did he play for?
There you go.
The Cleveland Browns.
Up next, the man himself. In his own words, Jim Brown joins the conversation and opens up about his legendary career.
I never forget at the Hall of Fame induction, after my speech, Jim Brown was sitting in the back, and during the break, he's leaning back and he said, "Come here." Being that I had gone long on my speech, I didn't know what this was going to be about, but he said to me, he leaned up in his seat and he said, "That was awesome. That was really great." Man, I got chills when he said that because, you know, hearing that from the great Jim Brown was remarkable.
man amongst boys. There was nothing that anybody could do to stop him. And think about the old Tecmo Bowl games, man. When guys like that got the ball on Tecmo Bowl, man, then all the Tecmo Bowl players just went flying because you couldn't stop them. And that's the way it was with him in real life.
We went up to spend time being able to get to know him. At the time, was in awe of the fact that it was Jim Brown. Secondly, I couldn't believe it because I thought there is no way I could tackle Jim Brown, even at the age that he was at. And I realized that here was a person that represented more than just the game.
So we welcome back in Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. We have Hall of Famer Franco Harris right here. We also have Hall of Famer Marcus Allen. And of course, the GOAT, the greatest of all time to ever play our game. We have Hall of Famer Jim Brown.
You guys, how you doing, baby? Good to see you.
Good to be here, man. Good to be here with you.
Good to be with you guys.
Thanks for being here with us. Jim, we'll take a seat. We'll take a seat.
Well, I tell you, it's fantastic for you to put this together. We are very fortunate to have been warriors. I know all those moves you got, my brother. Very few people have them. I know you can catch a pass as good as anybody. I know this cat's one of the best all-around backs that ever lived. Franco was with the great Pittsburgh team, man, a tremendous leader there. I can see those strides right now and those knees coming up. And when you talk about Dickerson over here, it's unfortunate that his story cannot be fully told. Because they say you gotta bend over, you gotta drop the shoulder. That sucker road was, whoa. Those long strides, those great cuts, that acceleration. And all of us had a different thing. And to know the differences, to understand the greatness of it.
Tell me, what did your contemporaries think of you? How did they view you?
When you say contemporaries, do you mean the offensive players or the defensive players?
Give me both. You can give me both.
Well, I'll give it to you this way. Pain in the butt. I'll tell you, the respect has always been there. And it's a beautiful thing because the mental level is through the roof. The ability to think and to feel and to recognize. And all of my contemporaries recognized the fact that I knew how great they were and how different they were. There's a great love affair.
How about life in the NFL? Hardest part about life in the NFL for you?
The hardest part was like life in America during that time because racism was the first thing I faced when I woke up in the morning. And struggling to maintain my dignity and still be commercial enough to play the game. It was very difficult. Bobby Mitchell said once that if I only had to play football, it would be easy. But I have to deal with being an African American.
Yeah,
and that's difficult.
Yeah, something like that, and it doesn't bring you down. I mean, that even shows more of the greatness and really ability of what you had mentally and physically to accomplish what you accomplished at that time, to where not to let off the field detract from what you had to accomplish on the field. That was quite amazing.
Well, that's a great observation, Franco.
That's one of the reasons I love him so much and admire him so much. I didn't have to deal with any of those things in San Diego. And if it was very subtle. And that's why I admire Jim so much. And guys of that generation like Bill Russell, you know, taking a stand and telling the Boston Celtics we're not playing if we don't stay in this particular hotel. And Jim, you know, I was telling Marshall one of my favorite images were you sitting next to Muhammad Ali. That picture, and Bill Russell, and Bobby Mitchell, and
Kareem.
Kareem was right there. You
the
was
youngest
there.
one.
Yeah, it was sitting next to you. And really, that picture speaks volumes of courage. It really does. I mean, it really epitomizes guys that took a stand, black athletes that were at a very unpopular time supporting Muhammad Ali, who didn't want to go to war, didn't want to get drafted because of his beliefs. They may not have, liked him then when he made those decisions. They're certainly respect him now because of
Well, that's a good point. You can't do things to be loved at the moment you do them, because anything that's going to turn out to be maybe great, it's going to take time for the general populace to catch up. And I appreciate, man, what you just said, because during those days, every day of my life, I had to think of something other than moving the football.
I always admired you, Jim. I mean, always have. And when I look at you, I look at the highlights, watch you run the football, and it wasn't just all about playing football. You had to deal with other things outside of football. And, I mean, I've had it myself. I mean, when I came up, you know, and living in Texas, the racism, you think it would be gone like in the 80s and the 90s, but it was full force, I can say that. Even I got in the NFL. I mean, when I got traded from the Rams, I got hate mail, you know, the N-word, you know, you're an N-grade, you know, you black this, you know, you should entertain us. And I can only imagine, you try to laugh at that little, that's it. That's it. You know, the little you went through. I mean, you know, you play in a stadium, and a stadium that you're the home team, and you look up and you see a banner hanging down of a little black baby with 29, a stack of money and watermelon, holding chicken in his hand. I mean, you think that that's supposed to happen in this day and age? Yeah. And, you know, you don't forget, you never forget that kind of stuff.
The counterbalance to that is great human beings that defied all of that. I always tell people, I said, during the civil rights movement, when black people had to fight for their freedom, equality, and justice, there was always white people that stood up for no reason other than the fact that it was the right thing to do. So we have to be careful in how we present that, because if you're fair, you talk about the good people, not the black people or the white people.
It's just remarkable to know you, knowing what you went through, and you are turning 80. I mean, that's, I'm just 80. I know you don't want to hear that, but you are turning 80. Hold on, wait. I have to say this. You are turning 80, and you are here with us. We can talk to you. We can hear your stories. Happy to have you here with us.
Still ahead, the Hall of Fame panel assesses Jim Brown's iconic football career and his wide-ranging, influential life after the game.
There's a thing called quality of life. And now we all have quality of life because we're discussing those things that make up our lives. But we all feel good about ourselves because we didn't sell out to money or to records or to whatever. And then when you sit among us, that higher level of thought comes out because we accept each other and care about each other. And all that other stuff is what it is. But we can sit here and we're not discussing number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. We're talking about us and the cross that we had to bear, man. You can't tell this man about his cross is not as great as mine. He had to face what he had to face at the time and live up to protecting himself as a human being, you know. So here we are. And it ain't bad. It ain't a bad feeling, because when my phone rang, I answered. I ain't running. I ain't running nobody.
Legend, pioneer, somebody who meant a lot to this game, both in terms of the African-American community and pioneering us into this game and taking a stand for us, going out there and battling through so much adversity that I can't even imagine, but doing it the right way, doing it like a pro, setting a phenomenal example that we are challenged every day to follow.
Jim Brown really did care about youngsters who were not being given assistance and direction and who were therefore consigned to the scrap heap for life. He set about to try to change that. And he went for the population that no one else would touch. The ultimate results we are still benefiting from.
He changed and influenced the definition of what black men could be, what they were about, or what they should aspire to. He simply stood up and was a model for what so many of us aspire to become and what we aspire to for young black men in this society.
Welcome back in, Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. We have Hall of Famer Curtis Martin, Hall of Famer Franco Harris, and the GOAT, greatest to ever play the game, Jim Brown. Jim, winning the championship or league MVP, better accomplishment for you?
Come on, man. Are you kidding? 1964, world champions. You know, the championship is a deal. Because football is a team sport. Team sport. Everybody do their job. Everybody gets rewarded equally. And for us, I think people were looking to say, we got there, but we never won the big one, because I think we got there 3 times and won 1 out of 3. And so when you look at all of your teammates, their desire, their contribution, and the whole organization, it says success, man.
I'm sure everybody wants to know this. You played 9 years. 8 of those 9 years, you lead the league in rushing. You averaged 5.2 yards per carry. And then you walked away.
Football was a game that I played, but football is not life. And I had waiting on me a 3-picture deal with Paramount and Raquel Welch, ready to be my leading lady.
Hold on, wait.
Over in Spain.
So you mean to tell me you left football for a woman?
I told you, my favorite movie.
She wasn't just a woman.
You left football for a woman?
Sex symbol of the world. So leaving was easy for me because I knew one day we'd be talking and you'd ask me that question. And I could give you that answer, my brother. You know what I'm saying? Football was not my life. It was what I did at the time. It gave me a living. It gave me some notoriety. But when I went into the movies, I was breaking taboos. You know, and at the time, we needed leading black men. I wanted films to be financed on my name. I wanted to be able to break down the barrier of race. And I traveled around the world. And I didn't have to get hit anymore.
So that was a great feeling. But for us, I mean...
You know, like I was going to say, but in the end, you know, a lot of times, you know, because of championships and what you accomplished, Jim, football always comes back.
And I don't resist it.
No.
I'm not playing that game. I mean, I loved it. It was great for me. It comes back. I'm sitting here with Hall of Famers. I know that you guys respect me. I know that in my heart. And you know I respect you. Now, I couldn't have gotten that from movies. It doesn't work that way in movies. Movies are very selfish. People trying to steal scenes and all kinds of things. You know? But here, there's no selfishness. There's a reality that we deal with and a love that we have. Because a football player is the closest thing to war that we have in this country. And all you guys are warriors. And we have that respect that belongs to us, nobody else.
And that bond.
That bond, nobody else has that.
What did you love most about the game? Was it this? Was it the respect? Was it the teammates? Was it the camaraderie?
Competition, man. I like competition. Somebody was trying to beat me down, and I could fight them, and we can come out victorious. Football allows you to bring it. As bad as you are, there's some suckers out there that's waiting on you. It ain't no, look, you're gonna just waltz through nothing. As bad as you are, there's somebody that's gonna try to knock your head off. Chuck Bednarik, Sam Huff, all these guys are waiting on me.
Ray Niskey.
And I was, yeah, Ray Niskey, crazy as he was, Dick Butkus, crazy as they were coming after your butt, boy. So it ain't like you got away easy with nothing.
What did you guys love most about the game?
For me, it was the camaraderie with the guys, the players. I loved the game of football. I just loved it. You know, there was nothing about it and like about it.
Going into the NFL and becoming a part of this game, football, it was like a second parent to me. And so I've learned invaluable lessons that will follow me until I close my eyes through football. You know, football taught me how to be determined. Football taught me how to be disciplined. I've learned some things, and my life would not be anywhere close to where it is today had it not been for the lessons that I've learned through football.
And just as Eric mentioned, the camaraderie, to experience a whole city embrace this team and embrace the players, and it was just an incredible experience that we had.
When I think about the sport and what I love about it, if you think about football, and no other sport is like this, there's a ball, a guy has a ball, you're up, you're going to get knocked down. They're trying to take that ball. You have to get up after they knock you down, go get the ball again, and attack, attack, attack. That's football, that's life. You're going to get knocked down. You have the ball of life in your hands. People gonna tackle you, you're gonna fall, things are gonna happen. And it's the person who gets up that can get back into the game.
I think that is a part of the respect and admiration that I have for Jim, is because playing when he played, he had an amount of adversity that none of us actually had to face. But, you know, I have this quote that says, you know, your irresponsibility becomes someone else's responsibility. You know, and I'm very grateful that at that time and under the circumstances that Jim took the responsible role. And because it's because of what he's done that I think that we even sit in the positions that we do now. There's no way, I don't even think we're here. I don't think that we had the careers that we have, or maybe even had the opportunity that we have, if it wasn't for someone like Jim, who chose the responsible route. And his irresponsibility didn't become someone else's responsibility. He was the one who was responsible, and that's the way, you know, I feel like we sit here on his back.
When you think of all sports, you think in every sport, any sport, if it's hockey, soccer, basketball, baseball, it's always one guy that says this, number one. And for us in football, it always comes back to you. 50 years later, didn't play football. What it comes back to? Jim Brown.
When we come back, some final thoughts on Jim Brown's 80th birthday and a legacy that transcends the game.
Well, I think chess is the closest game to life itself.
I think you learn a lot about a person in the game of chess. I've learned how strategic he is, how intense he is. I learned how he really hates to lose.
He wants to win this game in front of you guys.
These are the things that really makes you the athlete and the achiever that you are in life.
One wrong move in chess, you can lose the game. One wrong move in football, you can lose the game.
After about our third or fourth game into it, it's almost like being on the field. You know, we're talking stuff to each other.
Baby, 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 you got some work to do.
When I think of Jim Brown and I think of his legacy, of course what he did on the field is one thing, but what he did off the field and continues to do in terms of helping out the youth and just calling everybody of the mind together to try and change the world, I think that's going to be his legacy, if not just as much and more than what he's done on the field.
I think we all look at Jim as the godfather of football. There's so much respect and reverence for who he is as a man and what he was able to accomplish throughout the game for the period of time that he played. I don't think the modern day player or the modern day fan truly understands that this man only played for a short period of time and walked away from a game at the height of his young career and changed gears.
Jim Brown, the greatest player to ever play in the NFL. He was one of those guys that really transcended the game.
We're now joined by Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, Hall of Famer Curtis Martin, Hall of Famer Franco Harris, and we welcome back Hall of Famer Marcus Allen. And of course, we are here because of the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Jim Brown. Guys, we're going to take this opportunity, and I'll give each one of you an opportunity to just talk about Jim's legacy.
You know, you always start with number one. And when you think about the running back position, even the football, and when you talk about Jim, 50 years ago Jim played, you still talk about Jim Brown. And that goes to show you, when you say withstanding the test of time, and time tells all stories, it really does. Jim Brown has withstood the test of time. And that's what makes him such a great football player. But most of all, forget the football, I say, he's a better man, a better person.
Thank you, my brother.
Well, you know, I tend to measure people or situations based on the impact. And when you look at the impact that Jim has had, not only on the NFL, but also on society, on us as fellow running backs. I think that it's, one of the greatest contributions that he's made to this world in general. And then the impact, even bringing it to a personal level for myself, having the opportunity to get to know a man like him has helped me elevate myself, not as a player, of course, but as a person. So the impact that he's had on my life, one of the things that Jim did, and I don't know if he knows how meaningful it was to me, was that at last year's Hall of Fame, he came over to me, we sat down, and he says to me, listen, young man, I just want you to know that I have a lot of respect for you. I like the way you carry yourself. I like the way you do things. He said, anything you're involved with, feel free to say that I'm involved just because you're involved. And for me, that was such a humbling comment for someone like him to make to me. It's probably one of the greatest compliments that I've received in my entire life.
When you look at the character of someone that really, as I mentioned earlier, just goes beyond just the sport. Look at the life that this guy lived and what he did.
We were discussing earlier about, Jim today. And frankly, I feel like, Jim was born when he was supposed to be born, at a time when he was really needed. And he impacted that time. And I want to thank you for being that activist that made it all better for us. I really do. I appreciate you. I admire the person you are. Happy birthday. I'm just glad to be here. I really am.
Jim's legacy to me is, I liken it to something that was in my house growing up. My mother had the picture, and I'm sure a lot of people, maybe each and every one of you had it. It was that one hand reaching down to lift up that other hand. And Jim has reach beyond his sport, beyond his race, beyond his gender. He is a person that can touch people, lift people up, give people a belief in themselves and what they're doing, regardless if it's in sport or not. Each and every one of us, some way, somehow, on and off the field, he has touched us. Happy birthday to you, Jim.
Thank you, my brother.
It's not just good to be here. It's good to call you a friend. That's why you got to say.
You had to go there, man. Come on, man.
We jealous, right? So I'll wrap this up by saying thank you to all of you guys, and especially thanks to you, Jim, for being here to celebrate your 80th birthday and just allowing us to look back on your career and letting you know and sharing with the audience what you meant to us and how appreciative we are for you just plain old being you.
Well, thank you. For an old man, what the heck? I appreciate it. 80 years old.
80 years young.
80 years young.